Alright, so this is going to be a video on replacing the rack and pinion on an '05 Colorado. As always, similar to your models, it's the same junk. A few things I want to go over before we start on it. You want to make sure your steering wheel is centered and preferably locked. Now this is where your steering shaft is going to go, and if you'll notice, we got a flat spot. If I can move the camera in the right place. Alright, so super important. The reason I do these videos is to keep y'all from making mistakes, and I made a mistake. I did not realize there are two seals. There's one that goes in each one of these holes. I'll post the part number in the description. Nobody carries these seals around here, so I've got some on order. I was actually able to pull these old ones out because they look almost like a little bushing. If my camera will focus. But anyway, so pay attention to that. You gotta have seals, otherwise you will have a leak here when you bolt your lines up. We got a flat spot on each side here, and then we've actually got a notch right here, and that is where your bolt is gonna go through. So that'll make more sense when we get into it. Now this rack and pinion does have the inner tie rods on it. Usually they'll come with them. If not, you'll need to put those on. Now something you're going to do with your old rack and pinion is find a good place to measure off of to try and get your outer tie rods as close as you can. Now you will need to have an alignment when you do this job. So the toe doesn't have to be perfect, but obviously you want it close enough to where it's not driving all wonky going on the road. This one seems fairly simple. Looks like we're going to have two bolts holding it to the subframe, two lines, of course your steering shaft, and then we'll have our two outer tie rods to take off. And if we may get lucky, we may be able to remove this one without taking it apart. That's what we're going to shoot for. That way we can lay it on the ground and actually measure and make our lives a little bit easier. But we'll jump into it and see what we're getting into. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do, I've got my steering wheel center. You can run your seatbelt through it or just be real careful, whatever you want to do. But once that's done, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this tie rod in loose right here. The sun's messing with the camera a little bit, but you're going to have a cotter pin right here. We're going to take it out. This is probably going to be like a, I don't know, 18 or 19. We'll zip it off, knock that tie rod down, and we'll repeat the process on the other side so that they'll both be removed. So to do this, pretty simple. Bend your Carter key straight, then pull it out. We'll discard of this. We've got new ones to put in there. Be sure you put your little Carter key back in there, because that's your insurance to let you know it's not going to come off. Now, let's see if it's 8. Oh, it may be a 21, y'all. We're just grabbing sockets till we find one. And it was. On this one it is a 21. So, with obviously, if you're reusing your outer tie rods, I don't know why you would unless you just recently replaced them and now you're replacing your rack. You don't want to damage your outer tie rod threads. So a good way to do this, take that capsule nut off, turn it upside down, screw it back down almost all the way to where it's flush with the threads or the top of this bolt, then knock it down. You can try a splitter. That's going to kill your boot right here. But we're replacing everything, so we're just going to give it a whack. And sometimes these boogers will come out fairly easy. Sometimes they're a pain. too bad. Now she's loose. Alright, so there it is. So we'll do the same thing on the other side. Quarter pin out, nut off, knock it down. Then we'll pick the truck up a little bit more and start taking the actual rack itself out. Alright, so now that we're under here, we're gonna have this bolt to take out, this bolt to take out, and then we'll take these strap loose right here. 2 strap bolts over here are gonna be 15s, I believe is what I just seen. And then these will be 24s. Now we've also got your 2 lines up here to take loose, and both of those will be 14s, I believe. Now, what we'll probably end up doing is go ahead and taking our steering shaft bolt out, and you can't really see it. Let me see if I can move y'all without messing you up too bad. See if I can point you up. So that's going to be your steering shaft bolt right here. I believe it's going to be a 10mm. You unscrew it, and then your steering shaft will slide up. Like I said, just be careful that you don't spin that. So now we've got the bolt out, so we're just going to push the shaft up off the rack and pinion. And just like that, she is off. We'll set her back right there. Alright, let's get these bolts out. Had a customer show up, got distracted. Booger's noisy. Take the other 15 out. Most of y'all probably knows, but sometimes when you're having a hard time backing a bolt out, if you'll run it back in and then back it back out, makes life a little bit easier. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Excuse me. Alright. So now for the big bolts. If I can do this without messing y'all up too much. We'll give it a shot. See, ooh, can't come from that way. Let's go this way. I'll let that bolt hang in there to catch it if we need to. And for this other one, let's see if we can get a wrench right up there. There she is. Looks like we're gonna have a washer on the top side right here. Yep. We can get it off there. Pull that bolt out. Let's see, we got a washer right here? We do. Alright. Let's see what she's gonna do now. So, the hope is to pull this whole rack and pinion out as an assembly without taking the outer tie rods off. Some of them you can, some of them you can't. My dumb ass. Alright. I got carried away. You don't take these lines loose. You take the lines on the back side loose. The lines coming from the front of the engine, they're not the lines that go to the rest of the rack. So, disregard that. I got carried away there. We'll take and pop these lines right here loose, and we'll work this rack out of here. Alright, I guess I was just excited to be removing a rack and pinion that I got carried away and started taking crap loose we didn't need to. So anyways, the proper way to undo your lines right here
you're gonna have a 10mm bolt that bolts in right here and holds that plate against this rack. So take that 10 out and then just wiggle it. The lines will come loose. Make sure you clean everything very well before you go back together. So now that we've taken unnecessary stuff apart and we've made a mess, let's see if we can work this rack and pinion out. Let's see. I think it's gonna be better to go this way. Just like that. It is out. So now we're gonna want to carry it over here and compare it with our new rack and make sure everything looks right. Alright, so here's our rack and pinions next to each other. Looks like we've got the right deal. We'll take this clamp off, transfer it to the new one, and then what we'll probably end up doing, the inner tie rods, you can't always go off this, but the inner tie rods, they look the same length. They look like they're identical to each other. So what we'll probably do is measure off where the square rib starts, where the round part of the tie rod ends and the square starts. Probably measure off it to the center of this outer tie rod to get our measurement for putting our tie rods on the new rack. And it's pretty straightforward. You take your new tie rod. Well, it would have been nice if it would have come with a nut, so we wouldn't have to disassemble the old one. But either way, if yours doesn't come with a nut, take your nut off the old one, spin your nut on, spin your tie rod on. You want to get it to the right length. Then you can either try to tighten the nut there, or you can wait until you put it back in the vehicle and put this in your knuckle. That way it'll hold it still, and then tighten your gem nut. So we're probably going to stop the video right here because I'm also replacing the power steering pump on this truck. And I want to flush my lines before I put my new rack in, keep from getting it all nice and dirty. But anyways, we'll get back into it, or we'll edit it out. Something. Alright, back on the rack and pinion. Alright, so we've got the new rack and pinion set in there. We've got one of our 24mm bolts just set in there to hold it up, and I went ahead and started the lines on the back side. We'll get our bolts put back in, and then we'll move to our outer tie rods. Now I have already installed them. They're loose. I measured the old one. I meant to get a video of that, but I've had people stopping in and out and forgot to be honest. So we'll get the bolts put in, and then we'll move over to the outer tie rods, and we'll go over that, and then we'll be ready to put fluid in it, I guess, after we hook our steering linkage up. So let's get started on that. Alright, so remember this is going to be our 11mm bolt. I'm going to try to do this without getting you guys way too much. We'll pick this gear up with a shaft. And we'll get all in your way so you can't see what I'm doing. And then we will gently slide her down on there. Now I'm going to put a little bit of blue Loctite on this bolt. That's all that is. Slide the shaft back down on there, tighten it up. There's no need in y'all sitting here for another 2.5, 3 minutes watching me tighten that bolt. We will jump back into it when we're setting the tie rods in. Alright, so putting tie rods on. Remember, these came up from the bottom. They're still loose, but they're pretty bad close. Once we get these tightened up, we'll come back and lock our lock nut. But before we put it on, go ahead and put our grease fittings in there. These that came with these tire rods happen to be 7mm. Just get them nice and snug. Yours may be different, may not. Trying to move this joint up, bend it in a little bit, and that will make it a little bit easier. Trying to get it to go in there just like that. So now kind of pay attention to where your hole's at for your quarter pin. It's right there. So now we'll put our castle nut. And this is why you hook your steering wheel back up before you do these. Let's come just out here. That's pretty close. We got it tight, got it seated. We can put our quarter pin in here. And I like to fold the top one over and the bottom one down. I'm sure somebody said that's wrong, which is fine. They're welcome to do it however you like. So our grease fitting's in, ball joint's in, or the tie rod's in, bolted down. I'm not gonna tighten this yet. What I'm gonna do, once I get the other side done, we'll let the truck down and I will double check that the tires look halfway straight. If they're pretty close to being straight, that's cool. We'll lock that nut. If not, we'll come in and we'll adjust this inner tie rod to move the toe closer where we think it's supposed to be. Once I do the other side, double check the toe. Once everything looks great, we will put fluid in the power steering pump reservoir. And you'll need to bleed the system since you're replacing the rack. Just did a video on replacing the pump itself, so I'm definitely going to do it. But what you're going to want to do is lift this truck, lift the front wheels off the ground, fill the reservoir to full. Then without starting the vehicle, you want to turn it full left lock, full right lock. So turn it all the way left, all the way right. Do that a few times, check your fluid level, top it back off, do it again. Continue to do that until you're not having to add any more fluid, and then do it a few more times just to be safe. Once that's done, you should have the air out of the system. It should have the system full of fluid. You can crank it up, turn it a few more times, shut it off, check it. Now, if you crank it up and the pump's making noise, shut it off, and you'll have to wait a little while, because what it'll do, if you've got air in the system, it'll actually turn your power steering fluid into like a foam substance. You'll have to wait for all that air and that foam to settle back into the power steering fluid. That way you can continue to bleed the system. Otherwise you'll just be fighting yourself. But hopefully this helped y'all. If it did, great. If not, well, I hate that. Let me know why it didn't help you. Because that's the whole reason I'm doing this, trying to help a few people. But let me know in the comments. I appreciate y'all taking the time to watch this. Hopefully I cut enough of the BS out. You don't mind me talking now, but any questions, recommendations, put them down below. If you're needing help with something, put it in the comments. I try to answer them as quickly as I can when I have time to. I feel like I do a pretty good job at responding to people. So yeah, and like I said on my last video, 0.9% of y'all jokers are subscribed. So if you find this video useful, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, whatever it is, to get notifications. Because if you find this useful, I'm sure you'll find some other videos useful, especially if you have one of these trucks, because this is a long-time customer and I do a lot of maintenance on this truck. Anyways, appreciate y'all's time. Hope you found it useful. Thanks for watching.